New Delhi, you're watching DT India News Hour, India's Watch to the World. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next hour. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar says Quad countries working together for a free and open Indo-Pacific as Quad foreign ministers meet concludes in Tokyo. Israel cabinet authorizes government to respond to Hezbollah rocket strike. Hezbollah on high alert in case of retaliation. Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro wins third term as president amid opposition claiming of irregularities, says re-election is triumph of peace and stability. And India continues to remain in medal contention at ongoing Paris Olympics 2024. Arjun Babhuta to vouch for glory in 10-meter air rifle men's category. India's archers will also be in action today. Foreign ministers from Australia, India, Japan and the United States pledged on Monday to bolster maritime security in the Indo-Pacific region. Foreign ministers from Australia, India, US and Japan also collectively, which is known as the Quad grouping, convened in Tokyo on Monday to explore strategies for enhancing maritime security and strengthening cyber defenses. In a joint statement, leaders expressed serious concern about the militarization of disputed features and coercive and intimidating maneuvers in the South China Sea, including dangerous use of Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels.
By bolstering maritime security.
Uncertainty surrounding the international order as well as the international situation has been increasing, with Russia continuing its aggression in Ukraine. Attempts to unilaterally change the status quo by force in the East China Sea and South China Sea, and the launch of ballistic missiles by North Korea.
Charting a course for a more secure and open Indo-Pacific and Indian Ocean region by bolstering maritime security and domain awareness. In practical terms, what does this mean? It means strengthening capacity of partners across the region to know what's happening in their own waters.
To how we respond to the circumstances we face. And it is critical to how we influence the shaping of the region and the world in which we live. We want a peaceful, stable and prosperous region, a region where sovereignty is respected and in which competition is managed responsibly.
The overall messaging is that our four countries, all democratic polities, pluralistic societies and market economies, are working together for a free and open Indo-Pacific, for a rules-based order and for global good. That, by itself, is a powerful stabilizing factor in an uncertain and volatile world.
India's foreign minister also mentioned that it is crucial to ensure all aspects of our cooperation are aligned. The unified message from four countries underscores their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, advancing global well-being.
It is important that we all connect the dots. The overall messaging is that our four countries, all democratic polities, pluralistic societies and market economies, are working together for a free and open Indo-Pacific, for a rules-based order and for global good. That, by itself, is a powerful stabilizing factor in an uncertain and volatile world.
Minister Jaishankar also highlighted that the bilateral and trilateral relationships within the Quad are effective, with progress in one area bolstering others, including other like-minded countries.
There is a strong interactive dynamic between the Quad and our respective bilateral and even trilateral relationships. Progress on one front strengthens the other and thereby enhances the value of the Quad. We have been able to engage together with some other countries in this region in furtherance of a shared agenda.
The joint statement of Quad stressed on providing tangible benefits for the region. The statement said that Quad is committed to a free and open Indo-Pacific. These are the takeaways from the joint statement. Upholding the free and open rules-based international order. That Quad is up for ASEAN's unity and centrality and the ASEAN-led regional architecture, including the East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum. Quad also emphasizes the importance of United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea to resolve maritime claims and disputes. The statement also says Quad is concerned about the situation in the East and South China Seas and coercive and intimidating maneuvers. Quad is there to promote supplier diversification and enhancing semiconductor supply chains among members. It further said that Quad establishes Quad Cyber Ambassadors meeting to discuss capacity building projects and also mentioned that Quad is against terrorism and violent extremism in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism. Quad calls for concerted action against all UN-listed terrorist groups, including Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and their proxy groups. Quad, in a joint statement, further says unequivocally condemned the terror attacks on October 7, 2023 in Israel. Let's quickly go live over to DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert, who is joining us live from Tokyo. Good afternoon, Chris. Now, let's first talk about the strongly worded Quad joint statement that I was just going through the big takeaways, but not only reiterating the overall expansive agenda of the Quad grouping, its relevance in the international politics, but also taking certain countries head on their expansionism, especially in the South China Sea, without naming China, but a direct message there, plus those countries who harbor terror infrastructure as well.
Yeah, it's not head-on, it's more side-on or diagonally. As you mentioned, they didn't name any names, they didn't say China, but there's no, guessing about what they're referencing. Right. It is the several run-ins between the coast guards of China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, which have escalated over, progressive months, coming to a head just a month or so ago. Now, those two countries have come up with their own conduct or their own code of conduct very recently about how to pursue their naval, ventures from here. We'll see how long that lasts and how well that works. But the Quad at the moment is still a resurgent group, which is finding their footing. Dr. Jaishankar said that himself, that it wants to be more than a forum. It wants to have practical applications, and they have the tools, and now they just want to figure out how to use them most efficiently for their common goals. By all means, it seems like this joint statement, based on others, and according to political scientists I've been speaking to, they've found the footing for how to negotiate some of the different security perspectives of the respective countries inside Quad. They've found some of the common language about how to speak, how to address the South China Sea, the Indo-Pacific, Ukraine, as we saw today, the October 7th incident. So they've found this common footing, and now it's a matter of implementing initiatives, some of which they also mentioned, like a new maritime legal dialogue, right, domain awareness, surveillance of illegal shipping, and of course, most importantly, protecting that $5 trillion of trade which flows through the area every year as well.
All right. How do you look at India's pitch where our minister spoke about how the Quad is actually embedded in the respective foreign policies? Now, India clearly one of the front runners in the Quad grouping, pitching for free and fair open Indo-Pacific, where he specifically mentions about the engagements within the Quad. So India's role in the Quad grouping, Chris.
Yeah, India's role in the Quad grouping is very focused on its maritime issues and maritime security. India, of course, is a vast nation. And if it looks to the north of it, the security issues are much different, and the trade and the economic issues are much different than if it looks to the south of it. And the Quad grouping, according to political scientists I've been speaking to, has less use for the India of the north than the India of the south. And so as it looks to itself as a maritime country, that is where partnerships with Australia, Japan, the US, and by extension beyond the Quad, other countries like the Philippines or South Korea, that's where that really becomes useful, because these countries have found, as I say, common footing on their foreign policy. They have mutual security challenges. Both the US and Japan, their national security strategies rank China as the #1 security challenger in the region. Now, while these countries, including India, may not use or direct, may have different balancing for how much they can say and how much they're willing to put on the line in their relationships, their bilateral relationships with some of those challenges. There is common ground between them.
And that is what is important, and that's what really matters going forward as far as Quad's overall relevance is concerned. Thank you very much, Chris. It was always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us live from Tokyo. And now we are also very glad to be joined by a special guest on this broadcast, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, joining us here. Good afternoon, sir, Ambassador Kumar. Now, if you could just decode for the viewers of India and abroad who are watching this, the overall takeaways or overall overarching agenda of the respective members of the Quad. Also, the fact Minister Jaishankar pitched this time more bigger and substantive role of Quad's commitment of doing global good, and he talks about its resonance far beyond. What do you think is the message here?
Thank you very much, Zakal, for having me. No, the backdrop against which this Quad meeting is taking place is important, because your viewers must know that there was supposed to be a Quad summit with Biden participating in it in the month of January for various reasons, including his own campaign, ex-campaign, I should say, because he is no longer a candidate. For all of these reasons, that did not happen. So the fact that this has happened is important, because a lot of people were actually arguing that the Quad is kind of, weakening. And there was therefore, it was very important for the meeting itself to take place. Obviously, the summit itself will have to now wait for the American president to get elected. And that will probably happen early next year. So this was an important meeting. I think as Dr. Jaishankar said, this was 4 countries which are democratic, pluralistic, and market economies sending a message. That's point number 1. Point number 2, as your correspondent in Tokyo somewhat gingerly pointed out, there was no doubting who the message was addressed to. When you express strong concern about East China Sea, South China Sea, militarization, no change of status quo, conforming to UNCLOS, you are only targeting one country, Sakal. Let's not kid ourselves. So this is a clear message to China. That's the second. Third, in order to counter the impression that the Quad is just a talking shop, a number of specific projects have been outlined. The most important for India is that maritime domain awareness, which was hitherto confined to the Pacific, is now going to be extended to the Indian Ocean. This is something that I attach a lot of importance to, because I've always felt for India, it is the Indian Ocean which is actually more important than the Pacific theater, in which the US, Australia, Japan are heavily invested. So I'm extremely happy to note that Indian Ocean is now getting emphasis within the Quad. There are a number of references to cyber security, number of references to health. I also think the Quad statement has made some very important observations on both the Ukraine conflict and the Gaza conflict. I think that is also worth going through. In both of those conflicts, the Quad countries push for diplomacy, push for conflict resolution, and so on. So all in all, I would say this is a very substantive joint statement from the Quad countries.
And India's role herein going forward for pitching secure, prosperous Indo-Pacific, but amongst the grouping, you know, the way Minister Jaishankar specifically said, that this is not a talk shop, quote unquote. And there is a broader level of engagement within the Quad countries.
I think I'm going to put it bluntly, as always. Sakal, there is no Quad without India.
Yes.
The other three countries are allies. They are military allies of each other. They have a security relationship which ties them. Without India, Quad makes no sense. Because you might as well then say, we are only going to have a grouping among allies, which, by the way, they do. Since the last Quad meeting, the important thing is there has been the birth of Squad. I don't know if you've heard of Squad, which is United States, Japan, Australia, and Philippines. And all the four are allies of each other. India is not an ally of any of these countries, and therefore, India is what lends ballast, seriousness, and foundational power to the Quad. And that is why Quad focuses on all the non-traditional angles of security. The traditional security issues are dealt with by allies like the United States, Japan, Australia, Philippines, and so on. But the non-traditional issues, whether you're talking of cybersecurity, whether you're talking public health, whether you are talking connectivity, whether you are talking issues like tech. For example, there is a paragraph devoted to critical and emerging technologies, and that is part of non-traditional economic security. And they're talking of semiconductor chains, and they're talking in terms of resilient supply chains. So all those things, I think, make for India's vital contribution in this Quad meeting.
All right, the fact that India will be hosting the Quad Leaders Summit this year, this could also be seen as a big build-up for that. Meanwhile, it's such a pleasure talking to you, Ambassador Kumar. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you. And let's quickly go across to DD India's Akshay Dogre, who's also been following this story very, very closely, joining us for a quick perspective. Akshay, overall the messaging as far as India is concerned, and a bigger message to the rest of the world as far as the consolidation of a Quad combine amidst current polity is concerned. Because if you look at the joint statement, it's covered almost everything under the sun.
Well, absolutely. In fact, it was a long and very expansive joint statement that was issued by the Quad leaders, in fact, the foreign ministers and the Secretary of State of the United States of America, Antony Blinken. When they met, they in fact held discussions on a range of issues now, be it the topic of free and fair trade in the Indo-Pacific region, be it the Indian Ocean region, be it terror financing, terror harboring. So all of these things were issued. Global security matters that concern these four countries and matters that are beyond, the Quad grouping. For example, the issues that are being faced by individual nations in the Indo-Pacific region, the ASEAN nations, the problem that they are facing as far as these transgressions are concerned, the hegemonic tendencies of the Chinese authorities are concerned in terms of stopping the countries from free and fair trade in the South China Sea, and in fact, transgressing into regions such as Indian Ocean region, carrying out surveillance activities and all of that. India is in a unique position, in fact, Sakal, as far as tackling that particular concern is concerned. We have seen that in the last few years, India has in fact stepped up its own voicing of these issues, and in fact the Leaders Summit that is likely to be held quite soon in India, that will be also a big message. In fact, remembering the last Leaders Summit that took place in Tokyo, I can recall Akshay. I was there, and even while the Quad Leaders Summit was going on, the threats were indirectly made by China. In fact, there was an air exercise that was conducted jointly with Russia, just near the borders of the aerial borders of Japan, where all the four leaders were present. The messaging
Akshay,
is quite clear.
Yes. All right. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you for giving us that perspective on our lead story of the day. Thank you. And still to come on DT India News Hour, this is what we have for you. Coming up next, we talk about Turkey President Tayyip Erdogan He says his country might enter Israel to help Palestinians. And in a big offensive, Kyiv launches more than 24 drones on the Russian region of Kursk. US President Joe Biden expected to see constitutional amendment to limit immunity for presidents and other office holders.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Button. Let's now talk about Israel, where Israel's Security Cabinet on Sunday has authorized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to decide when and how Israel responds to the deadly attack on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israel has said that Hezbollah...
Citizens of Israel, like you, I was shocked to see the horrific photos in the wake of Hezbollah's murderous attack in Majd al-Shams. Among those who were murdered are young children who were playing soccer and others. All of our hearts are broken over these sights. I can say that the state of Israel will not let this pass in silence, will not overlook this.
Israel, meanwhile, has said that Hezbollah will pay the price after a rocket attack at Golan Heights, which killed 12 children reportedly, for which Tel Aviv blames the terror group. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has pledged a heavy response during a visit to the town of Majd al-Shams near the Syrian and Lebanese borders. Hezbollah has denied responsibility for the attack on Majd al-Shams on Saturday, the deadliest in Israel or Israeli-occupied territory since Hamas's October 7th assault, which sparked the conflict in Gaza. Hezbollah was on high alert and had cleared some key sites in both Lebanon's south and eastern Bekaa Valley in case of an Israeli attack. And as tensions escalate, some flights at Beirut airport have been cancelled or delayed, with Lebanon's Middle East Airlines saying that the disruptions to its schedules were related to insurance risk. Lufthansa, Turkish, Greek and Ethiopian airlines have also cancelled their flights to Beirut, scheduled for Monday. Sarah joins us. Sarah Coates of DD India joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, amidst the panic, I don't know if these cancellation or rescheduling of flights is the consequence of the panic button, but the fact that Israel's Security Cabinet has, it seems, put a lot of onus on Prime Minister Netanyahu's government to respond to these deadly attacks. Is this a sign for a situation to escalate further or worsen further? It could.
Hello there. There's certainly a lot of concern right around the region as to what Israel's response will look like. And this is, of course, why the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cut that visit to the United States short. He flew back to Israel on Sunday before huddling with his security cabinet to decide on a response. Well, that cabinet has now given Netanyahu and also the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant the authority to decide on the scope and the timing of this response. But certainly there is a lot of concern right around the region, and the 12th funeral for that 12th child that was killed is right now underway in the northern Druze village of Majd al-Shams. So certainly it is a region in mourning, and this comes as international leaders are really calling for calm. There's a lot of intensive diplomacy ongoing right now to try and bring this situation under control amid a lot of fear that this could potentially tip the region into a larger scale war.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Turkey seems to be offering some sort of a peace intervention or mediation when it says that it can intervene in the Gaza conflict. What do you read into that and the timings of this statement coming from Turkey?
Well, President Tayyip Erdogan, he's actually levelled a threat at Israel. He came out last night to say that his nation could enter Israel as it did in Libya and also Nagorno-Karabakh, saying that there's no reason we cannot do this. He is being slammed by Israel's foreign minister, Israel Katz, who posted on X that he is following in the footsteps of Saddam Hussein by threatening to attack Israel, adding he should remember what happened there and how it ended, referring to Saddam Hussein being hanged. But we do need to remember here that Erdogan has been a very fierce critic of Israel and also Israel's military actions in Gaza. But this is not something new. Relations between Turkey and Israel have really been on the decline over the past few years. And what we also do need to remember here is that Turkey is a member of NATO and is also very closely aligned with some of Israel's biggest allies in that alliance.
All right, Sarah, you keep an eye on that big story. Meanwhile, thank you for joining us live from Tel Aviv. And shifting focus to Russia, Ukraine, where Kyiv has launched more than 24 drones on the Russian region of Kursk in a recent wave of attacks. 19 drones were launched from Ukraine in the attack. Russia's defense ministry says their air defense systems have destroyed all the drones. 9 drones were destroyed over the Belgorod region, 5 over the Bryansk region and 3 each over the Voronezh and Leningrad regions, all in Russia's west side. So in total, there are 39 drones that were destroyed overnight, reportedly. The Russian officials say that the attack damaged an oil depot. They added the attacks caused minor damage to several residential buildings. Kyiv has said, meanwhile, the drone attacks are in response to Russia's continued bombing of Ukraine. And staying with Russia-Ukraine, as Russia-Ukraine conflict continues, around 3,000 former prisoners were given the option to trade jail time for a role in the Ukrainian army. Thousands of Ukrainian convicts have been freed from jail to bolster the efforts and fight against Russia on the battlefield. Now, under these new rules, prisoners will have their remaining sentences cleared if they agree to serve without leave until the end of the war. They would then be granted parole. The Justice Minister, Denis Maluska, says that more than 1,700 out of around 4,500 applications had been approved in the month of May, and those convicted of certain offences like the murder of 2 or more people and sexual crimes are barred from serving. Amidst all this, hundreds rallied in Kyiv to commemorate Ukrainian prisoners of war who were killed in Ukraine-Russian conflict on Sunday. More than 50 Ukrainian prisoners of war were killed in the conflict. People came to remember their loved ones, and the military personnel fought for weeks from the bunkers and tunnels below the steel works, after which hundreds of Azov fighters surrendered to Russian forces. In a new twist to European politics, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has declared on Sunday to relaunch cooperation with China. She has signed a 3-year action plan to reboot the relationship that had soured for a few years due to COVID-19 pandemic impacts and China's tensions with European Union and US. Italian Prime Minister is on her first official visit to Beijing since taking office. During her delegation-level meeting with her counterpart Li Qiang in Beijing on Sunday, she announced her willingness to improve trade ties with China. The action plan that was signed during the meetings sought to implement past agreement and experiment with the new forms of cooperation. It is still not clear whether Italy will join Belt and Road Initiative afresh. She is on a 5-day trip to China beginning Saturday. And shifting focus to Venezuela elections, where President Nicolas Maduro has won Venezuela's presidential polls according to partial results announced by the Electoral Council. The head of the National Electoral Council, Elvis Amoroso, declared that Maduro had 51.20% of the vote, with 80% of ballots counted, while his main rival, Edmundo Gonzalez, has won 44.02%.
When Donald Trump denounced he had the election stolen, we didn't meddle with that. We didn't tell them to do this or do that. This is in their hands, an internal affair the United States will solve. So this is what I demand as President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Respect for the Constitution, the public authorities, and the sovereign life of Venezuela.
Meanwhile, after the announcement of the results by National Electoral Council, Maduro addressed cheering supporters outside the Miraflores presidential palace. He said the election system or electoral system is transparent and called for a national dialogue.
Venezuela y desde aquí también al 80%.
With 80% of the count, we can emit our first report that marks a strong and irreversible trend. With 80% of the ballots counted and with a level of participation at 59%, the results are as follows. First, Nicolas Maduro Moros of the Gran Polo Patriótico got 5,150,092 votes at 51.20%. Candidate Mundo Gonzalez of the Mesa de la Unidad got 4,445,978 votes at 44.2%.
Obtuvo 5,150,000.
So reacting to Maduro's winning announcement, Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has said that opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez has won 70% of the vote.
Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia got 70% of the votes in this election and Nicolas Maduro received 30% of the votes. This is the truth, and my dear Venezuelans, this is the Venezuelan election with the largest margin of victory in history. Congratulations, Edmundo.
As Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro turned out victorious in the presidential elections, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, while addressing a joint statement on Quad, said that the international community is watching these results very closely and that the U.S. was concerned if people's choice were rightly reflected. Blinken called for electoral authorities to publish a detailed tabulation of votes.
We applaud the Venezuelan people for their participation in the July 28th presidential election. We commend their courage and commitment to democracy in the face of repression and in the face of adversity. We've seen the announcement just a short while ago by the Venezuelan Electoral Commission. We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people. The international community is watching this very closely and will respond accordingly.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next, Indian Parliament tackles the urgent issue of flooding at a coaching centre in Delhi. And 29 July is International Tigers Day. We take a look at the majestic creature and its habitat.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and before we move on, let's do a quick recap of the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar says Quad countries working together for a free and open Indo-Pacific as Quad foreign ministers meet concludes in Tokyo. Israel cabinet authorizes government to respond to Hezbollah rocket strikes. Hezbollah on high alert meanwhile in case of retaliation. And Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro wins third term as president amid opposition claims of irregularities, says re-election is triumph of peace and stability. And India continues to remain in medal contention at ongoing Paris Olympics 2024. Arjun Babuta of India to vouch for glory in 10-meter air rifle men's event, while India's archers are also in the fray. US President Joe Biden will announce plans to reform the Supreme Court on Monday, a media outlet reported, citing two people familiar with the matter, adding he was likely to back term limits for justice and an enforceable code of ethics. Biden said earlier this week during an Oval Office address that he would call for reform of the court. Biden is also expected to seek a constitutional amendment to limit immunity for presidents and some other office holders in the aftermath of the July Supreme Court ruling that presidents have broad immunity from prosecution. Biden will make the announcement in Texas on Monday, and the specific proposals could change. Justice Elena Kagan on Thursday became the first member of the Supreme Court to call publicly for beefing up its new ethics code by adding a way to enforce it. And with just 100 days left for elections in US, both contenders for the presidential post are working very hard to consolidate voters and accumulate resources for campaign. As the mood of the nation is taking a swing, neck-to-neck contest is expected in US presidential polls. And this week will see more intensified campaign in US race for president. The former US President Donald Trump has vowed that he will do more outside rallies across the nation and will not be intimidated by the gunshots. The Democrats, meanwhile, the Democrat presidential nominee Kamala Harris, on the other hand, has managed $200 million for intensifying campaigns. The US Vice President Harris also signed 170,000 new volunteers at the end of the week to spread and campaign for her across the state. Some polls in the US show sharp rise in Democrat support in comparison to what was earlier during Biden's candidature, giving red herring for the Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump. A ban on most abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy will come into effect from Monday in United States state of Iowa. The Supreme Court reiterated in June that there is no constitutional right to an abortion in the state and ordered a hold on the law to be lifted. The district court judge's orders last week set July 29th as the first day of enforcement. Previously, abortion was legal up to 20 weeks of pregnancy there, and last July, the state's Republican-controlled legislature passed a new ban on the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy, which is often before women know they are pregnant. And now let's take a look at other stories that are making news around the world. As Santorini bustles with tourists, as Greece local authorities push on the government to put a cap on tourist influx to prevent the pressure on the outdated infrastructure. Santorini's tourism is a major contributor to the national income, which has risen by 16% in the current year. Fishermen in northern province of Philippines are worried about the recent oil spill over MT Terra Nova, which was capsized last week. The oil spill that is washing up the shores may affect their livelihoods and lives both. The government is inspecting the cause of the spill. And the 5th Joint Committee meeting of the review of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement is taking place in Jakarta in Indonesia. The discussions for the review of the agreement started in May 2023 to make it more trade facilitative and beneficial for business across the region. A joint committee which is undertaking the review work has so far met 4 times. India and 10-nation bloc ASEAN have agreed to conclude talks in 2025. The delegates from India and all 10 ASEAN countries are participating in the discussions. India and Saudi Arabia virtually held the first meeting of the India-Saudi Arabia High-Level Task Force on Investments. The high-level task force was constituted following the decision taken by Prime Minister Modi and Saudi Crown Prince in September 2023. The two sides reviewed the discussions held between the technical teams of the task force. Constructive discussions were held on various opportunities for bilateral investments in diverse areas, including refining and petrochemical plants, new and renewable energy, power, telecom and innovation. The two sides also reviewed measures aimed at promoting two-way investments. India reiterated the firm intention to provide active support to Saudi investments of $100 billion. The two sides agreed to regular consultations between technical teams. Indian delegation led by Secretary Petroleum will visit Saudi Arabia for follow-up on mutually beneficial investment in oil and gas sector. Saudi side was also invited to set up Office of Sovereign Wealth Fund or PIF in India. Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, P.K. Mishra, invited the Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia to India for the next round of meeting. Five more persons have been arrested in connection with the basement flooding case in the Indian capital Delhi's Old Rajendra Nagar. The arrested persons include the owners of the basement. With these arrests, total number of persons arrested in the case has gone up to 7. The Municipal Corporation of Delhi has sealed the basement of 13 private institutes that teach students to prepare for a nationwide examination for recruitment to the country's civil services. The corporation's crackdown on properties violating building bylaws followed protests in India's capital and the deaths. Delhi LG V.K. Saxena meanwhile met students who continued their protests on Monday, demanding justice and appropriate action from the government, including steps to prevent waterlogging in the area. They've also sought punishment for the private institutes and their landowners who are running libraries and holding classes in a basement.
Behind me is the institute where that horrifying incident took place. 3 students lost their lives because of sheer negligence. And the students are protesting here. There has been no word from the administration or from the Delhi government.
We really don't know how many dead bodies are really there. They are not leaking the information for further biasness or maybe for further violation of the situation. But they should have.
The problem here is not just with the drains. There's a high brokerage here. The institute coaching rates are high. We are not sure who's accountable.
I have seen this place very closely, and I can tell you that this place has a lot of loopholes. The first thing, there is an institute, but there is no accountability for anything.
Whom do you blame for this?
Sir, this is the dual systematic failure. First is MCD I blame. Second is the coaching institute, because the MCD is the overall authority who the local governance in Delhi. So MCD should be blamed the first, and second the coaching institute.
Did anybody from the Aam Aadmi Party come to talk to you?
Sir, nobody from Aam Aadmi Party has come at this protest site, and sir, we feel deeply sorry and to learn that no one is really interested in this protest from the Aam Aadmi Party.
So there you hear, they are all sitting here, they all are carrying posters and they are demanding action against all those responsible. This is not an accident, these are murders. All the culprits should be punished, and they are all sitting here seeking justice. It's a sheer failure, and it was waiting to happen, and it finally did happen, and it happened in a very disastrous manner. With cameraman Jagmohan Pradhan in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India. Behind me is the institute where that...
Parliament is underway in Delhi. On Monday, the Parliament convened for the ongoing budget session with the procedural question hour and 0 hour. Several members in Rajya Sabha had given notice in the upper house to hold a discussion on the tragic death of 3 UPSC students in Delhi due to flooding of the basement. The Rajya Sabha chairman also expressed his deep concerns over the commercialization of the coaching institutes.
I find that youth demographic dividend of the country has to be nurtured. I deem it appropriate to have a short duration discussion or a calling attention first under 176 or under Rule 180.
The short discussion was allowed in the upper house after notice from BJP Sudhanshu Trivedi. Aam Aadmi Party Swati Maliwal and 5 other MPs of the Rajya Sabha as well. Several members of the parliament will be speaking on the budget meanwhile leader of the opposition Rahul Gandhi also spoke on the budget today. Today, we join the global community in celebrating International Tigers Day, which is rooted in the historic agreement signed at the St. Petersburg Tiger Summit in 2010. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya gives us this remarkable journey of tiger conservation with a special focus on India's pioneering Project Tiger.
Around the world, July 29th is celebrated as International Tiger Day. A day dedicated to raising awareness about tiger conservation and the protection of their natural habitats. This day serves as a reminder of the various agreements signed by various countries at the St. Petersburg Tiger Summit in Russia in 2010, aiming to highlight the critical decline in the global tiger population. By the 1970s, centuries of hunting and habitat destruction had reduced the number of wild tigers. In response, the Indian government declared tiger as India's national animal in 1973, banning hunting, and launched a pioneering conservation initiative known as Project Tiger. This program focuses on conserving tigers in specially designated reserves, which represent various biogeographical regions across the country, striving to maintain viable tiger population in their natural environment. Today, India is home to more than 70% of the world's tiger population among the 13 tiger range countries, thanks to the long-standing efforts of the Project Tiger. This initiative has successfully allocated 2.3% of the country's geographical area to 54 tiger reserves. There are currently 3,682 on an average of tigers in India, an increase from 2,967 in 2018, reflecting an annual remarkable growth of 6.1%. Under the stewardship of Project Tiger, the initial 9 tiger reserves have now expanded to 54, supporting more than 70% of the global tiger population. The success of Project Tiger underscores the importance of continued efforts in conservation and the protection of natural habitats. The remarkable increase in India's tiger population stands as a beacon of hope and a testament to the tireless work of conservationists worldwide. With camera person Sandeep, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
So you're watching DD India News Hour. It's time for some sports news. And for that, I'm going to be joined by Deepika. She's already there in the studio. So all eyes on glory as far as Paris is concerned after Manu Bhakar's big feat.
Indeed. Thanks and good afternoon. And once again, Manu Bhakar is all set to create history, winning another medal because she's qualified for yet another final at the Paris Olympics.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. Yes. So let's quickly get our viewers a quick update on Paris Olympics. So talking about Manu Bhakar, Indian shooter Manu Bhakar built on her bronze medal with a third-placed finish with Sarabjot Singh in 10-meter air pistol mixed team qualification event on Monday. Bhakar, along with her partner Sarabjot Singh, are now into the bronze medal clash. Manu will now shoot on Tuesday with Sarabjot for a shot at another medal in the third-fourth place playoff against Korea, which is scheduled to take place tomorrow at 1 p.m. according to the Indian Standard Time. On the other hand, the other Indian team consisting of Rhythm Sangwan and Arjun Chima crashed out as they finished at the 10th position. And in hope of bagging another medal from the sport of shooting, India's Arjun Baboota will be playing in the men's 10-meter air rifle in a very short while from now. Let's quickly take a look at more details about Arjun Baboota and his past achievements also through the help of the full-frame graphics, which would be right there in front of you. So Arjun Baboota has secured a spot in the 10-meter air rifle event at the Olympic Games, and he earned his entry into finals by finishing 7th in the qualification round. Now 25 years old, hailing from Chandigarh, Arjun shot a series of scores and then he achieved a total score of 630.1. Arjun has been an Asian Championship silver medalist. He also bagged gold in World Championship back in the year 2022. And in the same year, he added 2 more golds in his kitty at ISSF World Cup. Back in the year 2021, Arjun bagged a gold at World University Games. So this is all about Arjun Baboota, who's all set to vouch for glory. And to discuss more on this, I would be joined by Narayan Singh, who would be joining us straight from Paris. Narayan, a very good afternoon to you. When we talk about India at Paris Olympics, another shooter would be vouching for glory. It's a double delight for Manu Bhakar already. How do you look at India's performance so far?
Good afternoon, Deepika. Wonderful journey has been started for the Indian shooting contingent, and they won medal yesterday through Manu Bhakar. She won medal in 10-meter air pistol event, and we know that success is contagious, and now it has just we can say that ignited a passion in the Indian camp also, and also this medal will motivate the other athletes too, and many more events are lined up. And today also we can see that in hockey India will play Argentina, and in the evening there will be quarter-final of the men's archery team, and more matches are lined up. Tomorrow, as you mentioned, that Manu Bhaker and his mixed doubles partner will be there for the bronze medal match, and we can expect more medal from Manu Bhaker, and she will also, after that, she will also play in the 25-meter pistol event. So all in all, a fantastic journey, and we started, and we are hoping that is our athletes, our shooters, our other athletes will continue this winning momentum and break the record of the 7 medals they won last time in the Tokyo Olympics. And if shooters win 3 or 4 medals, we know that we have many talented shooters. Asa Singh is there, Swift Kaur Samra is there, Vijay Veer Sidhu is there. So many young and talented shooters are there. So Aishwarya Pratap is there. So Indian shooters are capable to win around 4 or 5 medals here for India. If this happens, definitely we can touch the double-digit number here. After track and field will start, we have Neeraj Chopra, Kishore Jana is there. In badminton doubles, we have men's doubles, Satvik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty. All in all, everything is going on track, and we are hoping that this winning momentum will continue for Team India in Paris.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us and bringing us a rounded update on the ongoing Paris Olympics and India's quest at that. Another shooting update, India's Ramita Jindal bowed out from medal contention at the ongoing Olympics. Ramita was competing in 10-meter air rifle event, and she ended 7th in the final of the 10-meter air rifle women's competition. Ramita shot 145.3 in a high-quality 8-women final. The young Indian shooter was placed 7th after 10 shots while the elimination round began. In danger of being eliminated, a 10.5 pushed Ramita to 6th place, even as Norway's Hege Jensen made an exit, but the Indian could not save herself after that. In badminton, India's doubles pair of Ashwini Ponappa and Tanisha Krasto failed to clinch a victory in their opening match of the multi-sport event in straight sets against world rank 4 Matsuo Sama and Shida by 11-21 and 21-12 in their second group stage clash. Now, women athletes walked down a catwalk in Paris in a fashion show that marked the first time gender parity is reached in the Olympic Games. The athletes, many having made their mark in past Olympic Games, welcomed the milestone but said more work needs to be done in order to improve working conditions, pay and visibility of women in different sporting categories. Former and current athletes including beach volleyball gold medalist Natalie Cook, BMX racer Sarah Walker and US middle distance runner Athing Mu joined fellow champions on the catwalk, some of whom sported t-shirts with slogans like Parity Paris and Role Model. Paris 2024 is the first Olympics in which an equal number of men and women are competing overall, but the split still varies widely by country and by sport. So that was a quick wrap from the world of Olympics right now. Back to you.
All the best, I would say, to you and your team for getting those good and brilliant headlines from Paris. Let's see India does much better this time around. And before we wrap up, Indian couture is making heads turn during the ongoing India Couture Week in New Delhi. On Sunday, designers like Amit Agarwal and Rahul Mishra presented futuristic designs at a collection inspired by the nature. The designs were a testament to the growth of Indian fashion industry on a global scale. With that, it's wrap up and of this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And especially for those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This application is available on both Android and iOS platforms. That's on your screen. Also, you can scan the QR code to download now. And we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakalba from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India News Hour.